feel like it was as imperative to have a trademark before the internet.
Yeah.
But now that we have access to people all over the country and world, you almost can't get away from the fact that a federal trademark almost applies to every single business.
Hey, Melissa, welcome to the Girl Take Note. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. It's not very often I get to talk. I think I only have one more attorney on my podcast. And I'm like, I like to, kind of mix it up some where everybody's not just like coaches and this and that, at least someone can come with some law background. We can talk about business law,
Sure.
talk about patents, or whatever that is, because I feel like my audience needs to know more when it comes to the law side of business, right? To make sure we're established in that arena. So I'm excited to have the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So let's kick things off first with kind of tell me your background. Like, what made you get into law? Was it your first love to be a law attorney, or is it something you just kind of develop over the years?
Gosh, I know this sounds so cliche, but I was totally influenced by the media and the movies. That absolutely was part of it, like Law and Order, Legally Blonde, although I was, that was after, I think that might've been while I was in law school, but just the concept of someone, being an advocate, and I don't even do that kind of law now, but it was such an impactful, character to embody. And I was always kind of an academic, nerd. But I also was a good writer.
Yeah.
And that is very important in what we do. And when I graduated college, I had a 4-year degree in international affairs because I decided I wanted to go study abroad in Italy. But international affairs doesn't mean that much in the real world. So that prompted me to
ask, what does that mean exactly?
That means that I had a 4-year degree, and that's what my parents made me do. So just the law school was always in the back of my mind. And on a whim, I applied and got in, and the rest is history. So it was not like this calling from day one, but when I got to law school, I did well. And so, that was helpful to sort of just reiterate that I was like on the right path. And
so when you finished law school, did you have a particular direction in law you wanted to go into, or did that kind of also just develop along the way as well?
Yeah, I think there's primarily two paths. You got the courtroom attorneys, and you got the ones that are in the desks. Yeah. I knew pretty quickly that I would not thrive in a courtroom environment just from stress standpoint, although I think I could do it. I have to be adversarial, obviously, in some contexts. And I think that the stress level is greatly reduced once you know what you're doing. But as a baby lawyer, that seemed really daunting to have to, be in front of the judge and not have time to sort of prepare and be, very calm in the comfort of my own office. So I gravitated towards the business side of law, and I've been in that space for the majority of my career. So that's where I ended up.
Oh, cool.
My husband's a litigator, though, so he's like the total opposite.
He is in the courtroom. What we see, like you said, on Law and Order.
Exactly. It's like we can't both be that. It would just be a disaster. So
it's so cool that you both are into law, though. We're going to pause for 1 second, Melissa, because my teleprompter is not on. And if I don't have the questions to ask you, this is going to be more of a, hey, Melissa, what is going on with you
today?
What's up? Type of interview. Oh my God.
I'll start interviewing you.
I know, right? It'll go the other way. I'm sorry. Okay. I just want to make sure it's connected. And this is fine because this can all be edited out.
Yeah, of course. Do the mark clip. I used to use Riverside to make sure.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love Riverside. It's been really good. All right, we are here. Get out there. Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, so you made a name for yourself by translating complex language of law, that is, into actionable advice. Can you share maybe a story where you guided an entrepreneur in that and how that helped them impacted their entrepreneur journey by guiding them through the whole legal process? Because it is very, when I think about the legal side of business, and it could be very overwhelming, right? Because I think as entrepreneurs, all we want to do is just start. I don't even think we think about, should I incorporate? Should I protect my, do I have an IP that I need to protect? You know what I mean? Those type of things. I don't know if we always think about that part, or do we just normally just think about, let's just get started. We'll deal with the legal stuff later.
Yeah. It's often an afterthought, and that's so much a part of the message of my firm and sort of the vision for it. It's like educating people earlier, so that you're more in a proactive mode as opposed to reactive mode. I launched my firm 7 months ago. I was in private practice. I was a partner at a boutique IP firm here in Dallas, and I was also in-house for a long time. But my very first client who came with me from my last firm, her story is actually perfect because she was just starting out. She's a young woman in her 30s, total badass. Excuse me. I don't know if I can say that on your show.
Yeah.
But
of course.
She is like just powerhouse. Like worked at a very, very high level company, decided to go and do her own entrepreneurial journey in the cybersecurity space, and came to me just to review a contract. And she was so just inexperienced in what she was presenting to me. When I read it, our conversation just sort of went in a completely different direction, because if she would have signed that agreement, she would have been giving away everything that she had been creating and actually been allowing a competitor to use the things that she was doing. So, and that was related to the intellectual property piece, but it's just, you don't know what you don't know. And the language, every clause of a contract actually means something. And I know that people want to gloss over them, and I'm guilty of it myself even. I know what you're trying to do. You don't want me to sue you. I get it. Okay, fine. Even with like permission slips and stuff for my kids, I'm like, whatever. Okay. But at the end of the day, in business, if you don't know that you're giving something away, and that's a piece of what you consider to be yours, like those are just situations where it's so easy to just redline that out, right? And if you like give pieces of your company away, or you don't have a partnership agreement in place when you start, or you don't have a contract in place with a vendor or a service provider, and then they screw you over, it's damaging. That is an investment. That is money in the bank. Whereas or not in the bank, that is money burnt in a trash can. It's educating entrepreneurs and startups on, and I get it. Pinching pennies at the beginning is like, that's part of the thing, right? Grind away, but budgeting a portion of that to dedicate to legal and those very specific risk and liability items can make or break you sort of down the road. And I call it, the foundational things. You want to have limit your personal liability for what you're doing in business. You don't want them coming after your house. You don't want them coming after your car. You don't want them, getting your personal bank account. So you need to make sure that you're separating that. You need to make sure that there's fundamental understandings between you and your customers, you and your suppliers, about what the expectations of everybody is, so that you can hold them accountable and they can hold you accountable and not hold you accountable for things that you didn't expect. And then on the IP side, it's just the things that you create actually are assets. They provide value and they can be monetized. But if you give them away, it just chips away at your ability to use that as an asset within your business. And so just having an understanding of where, like what you're making and what it could be is just so important. So getting in front of entrepreneurs at the beginning of their journey on education, and then being a resource long-term as they scale, and not when they receive a cease and desist letter, or they receive a, demand from a client, and you're reacting instead of planning ahead. It's like getting insurance. Everyone gets insurance. It's not like you like it, but it does serve a purpose, and so do those agreements.
Yeah, and you said it's right. It's like a lot of us think that we don't need it in the beginning, because we do look over. Because I was just about to ask that question: what are some of maybe the most common things that we look over when it comes to the legal side as new entrepreneurs? Because we would think that, I don't need the legal stuff yet. I'm gonna do an LLC. I get incorporated, and you don't think about the whole contract thing when it comes to. We have VA system, we have people working for you, right? You don't think about those types of things in the beginning. You think about only those when it's time to scale, when you're larger, when you're making a lot more money. You're thinking, okay, now I got to bring in someone legal. But I like that you said it's better to get ahead of it when you are a new entrepreneur versus waiting until something actually happens and then go and seek that legal advice. I like that you said that.
Because we can't offer any guidance then. The facts are what they are. And that's where, an attorney, that they call them counselors, because it's a lot of what we do is not necessarily writing it's not even legal. It is counseling. It is strategy. It is making sure to gear you towards, a path that's going to be less risky, or, more advantageous to you long term. And if we can't have those foundational discussions with you, then all we can do is, that's why attorneys get bad raps, because we're getting the case and we can't do anything about what's already happened.
Way too late.
It's we're not all bad though. I swear. In terms of and that's part of the goal. It's just taking the intimidation factor out of this relationship, right? It doesn't have to be, I don't want to talk to a lawyer. Like, we're supposed to be your advocate and your, confidant. That it is not supposed to be something where you feel like you can. If you have an attorney like that, they're not the right fit for you, but they exist. So go find one that suits your needs, that can level with you, that understands the intricacies of your business and where your goals are, and then use them as a strategic partner, because that's what really it is supposed to be. That relationship is supposed to be a two-way, street.
Yeah. And it's so funny, because I was talking to a woman yesterday. It's all about the financial aspect of business, right? Setting yourself up for success long term. And it's so true when we talked about, when you think about the financial piece of it, setting up your financial structure and then setting up your legal structure, those are not the sexy parts of business, right?
No.
Those are not like the fun parts, like, I can't wait to meet with my lawyer. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't think about those things, but it's so important to have those things in place. And I think it needs to be talked about more that's that foundational work we always talk about. Most of us think that, and I know my mindset was this way too, is that, the foundational legal work is, I just need to be incorporated. I just need to get a bank account. I'm good to go. That's really where my mindset was. But there's a lot more to that. It's not just about your incorporation or your LLC. There's more pieces to it, because like I say, it's the protections piece, especially if you're dealing with any type of intellectual property.
Intellectual property, if you're utilizing contractors in particular, they by nature of them, if you don't have an agreement that states that you get the benefit of their work, then the creator of that work technically owns the copyright on that thing. So if you don't have an agreement with your independent contractors, so think social media, people, designers, those sorts of things, like, you want to have something in place that absolutely says you are a work for hire. What you're creating is assigned to me by nature of this agreement, and otherwise there's nothing that says they can't use it.
Yes.
So that's a big one, and I know that there's so many ways to bring in help on a short-term basis and have people plug in, but if you're having them create something that you're going to use in your business, that provision is something I would not overlook.
Yeah. I I was watching this podcast, because of course I have a podcast, but I was watching other podcasts too. and listening. And he said something that was so jarring to me that I didn't even know based off what you just said. The woman told him that if you have a company that's actually recording the podcast for you, like if you have a contractor that's coming in, he's recording everything for you, he's editing everything for you, you have to have something in place because all of that footage belongs to him and not you. And he was like, but it's my podcast. And it was like, yeah, it's your podcast, but the recordings and everything that he did belongs to him. And unless you have something in place, and it goes based off exactly what you said. And I was so shocked when they said that, because I was just like, are you serious?
So sorry.
It's okay.
I have a motion light in my office. Okay, we're live. Okay.
It happens.
Apparently I wasn't moving enough. But yes, and that's so true when it comes to that like photographers, creatives, like all of these sort of new things that are coming out of the digital age that we live in, and the new opportunities that the younger generations have to make money. They're not thinking about the foundational elements of who owns what when they're doing these projects. The other day, I talked to a photographer. He was, sort of doing an exchange of services with someone, but technically that photographer owns the photos.
Yeah.
And so there's now, a question of who owns the photos. And of course they didn't have an agreement. It's this whole thing, but those are the sad cases where you're like, I can't really do a ton because you didn't file a copyright and you didn't have a contract, and there's limited remedies if you don't plan ahead. And so that's where, if you're burned once though, I bet you do later.
Oh yeah. You learn your lesson.
And that's part of entrepreneurship. And even I've learned some lessons since opening my doors in terms of, just where to spend money, where the resources should be allocated, but I didn't skip the trademark piece. I filed that before I even launched because I just am paranoid. and it's what you should do.
Yes. And
that's what you should do.
That's that piece where I don't think we do the trademark piece. We just think about, I got my logo, I got my name, I'm good. We don't even think about that piece.
And, I don't feel like it was as imperative to have a trademark before the internet.
Yeah.
But now that we have access to people all over the country and world, you almost can't get away from the fact that a federal trademark almost applies to every single business. Because if you're online and you're providing goods or services to people across, state lines, you qualify for a federal registration. And a lot of these social media platforms require that in order for you to take action against somebody who's using a similar name. And so it's just such a nice enforcement tool for you to be able to just take action right away, as opposed to allowing somebody to continue to damage you, as opposed to being able to immediately submit a takedown notice to any social media platform, because they all have the ability to do that. So it is a very helpful tool, and it's again sort of like an insurance policy. You hope nobody's ripping your brand off and creating another company that has a similar name that's causing confusion. But what if they do?
Yeah.
What are you going to be able to do about it if you don't own a registration? It's going to be, you have to go the longer route of finding out who they are, sending them a letter. I mean, it's not as effective, and it's not as fast.
Yeah. You know what? I gotta trademark my name.
You absolutely should.
I have not did it.
And your podcast name. Your podcasts these are things of value. These are money. This is an asset. So in terms of your long-term goals, I get it. If it's a seasonal thing or a short-term project, and that the process is going to take longer than you're going to be doing the thing, okay. But if you're serious, if someone comes to me as a vendor and they don't have certain things in place, I make assumptions about them as a business owner.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody does that. Like how sophisticated of a supplier or vendor are you if you don't have those things? Like if you don't present me with a contract, I'm out.
Yeah.
I want one.
Yeah.
And you should too. You should too. So
okay. I got to get more. You see, that's why I'm so glad we're doing this show. I got to get my legal house in order. There's a lot of things I have to get in order because, especially as podcasts, I feel like we just start. We don't think about, when I launched my podcast, I knew I had a long-term goal. You know, I knew I wanted to be a sustainable business. I wasn't just doing it as a passion project, as a hobby. But I think a lot of times with podcasts, we come out and that's kind of where our mindset is, oh, I just want my voice to be heard. I just want to do something. You know, and we don't think about the legal side of it of, do I want to incorporate it? Do I want a bank account? Do I want to get my name trademarked? I didn't even think about the trademark piece of it. Everything else, I was like, okay, it's good to know.
Well, and you're doing the production. You're using the recordings. What if I don't, like what you recorded?
Yes. And I do know that a lot of podcasters have their guest sign contracts. And it wasn't really something I ever thought about doing before because of, like you said, but what if I don't like what you did and I want to say something, or if I want to sue you for it? And so I didn't know if it was like, I'll think about it. But for so far, it's been okay. I didn't really.
And most people, and this is where I feel like this is the dialogue that goes on in an entrepreneur's head. It's like, it'll be fine.
Yes.
I don't want to be. No, that's exactly right. But what if it's not fine?
Yeah.
And do you really want that to be a distraction because you wouldn't have somebody take 2 seconds and sign a document that
like a release?
Right? Like it's just, I
gotta
get
do
it.
that more.
I get all of it, but just, this is insurance. This is a preventative, and it's just like a non-disclosure agreement, right? You want to, like if you're considering a relationship with a third party and you have confidential information, you're like, okay, well, we want to make sure that what we're saying stays in the circle of trust, right? But if you didn't present them with that, how would they know what you consider to be confidential information, or how you defined it and what you considered to be in that bucket of things and not in that bucket of things? So it just sets the rules. Like, hey, podcast guest, I'm going to use your stuff for whatever I want. If you want to come on my show, this is what you're agreeing to. And I have discretion to use it or not use it. And that's my prerogative as the person who's putting on this show. And I own the rights to it forever. And you can say, you can have it too. If you want to put it, like if I want to put it on and promote it, that I was on this show, is that part of the rule? Is it not part of the rules? You just, wouldn't it be nice to know for you that you've covered your bases?
Yeah, it would be nice to know. That is true. I want to go back for a minute because I want to talk about when you took your leap into entrepreneurship and launching your own practice. So what was that pivotal moment for you to say, hey, you know what? I think I want to venture out on my own and focus on, entrepreneurs. When was that pivotal moment for you?
Gosh, I just saw so many people that weren't smarter than me or more committed than me or more driven than me doing it. And I was like, this is, once I have 3 kids, 2020 was horrible. I have a 2-year-old now. When I got past my youngest, he just turned 2, but when he turned 1, and you kind of get a little bit of your mindset back and your body back. My eyes opened and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I building someone else's business? And and don't get me wrong, I am not bashing anyone that I worked for or any firm or anything, but I just knew. And I had many, sessions with girlfriends that ultimately gave me like the, yes, go do it, girl kind of thing. But I really had no concerns that if I did the work, I could build something for myself. And that's what everybody wants, right? You want to provide value to your clients while building your life in the manner that you want it, whatever that looks like for you. You want to, work 90 hours a week, you want to do XYZ, go for it. But whatever that looks like, people want freedom to make their own decisions. And I think that for me, I wanted control over the way that I ran my practice. I wanted to utilize technology more. I was sick of the old white man practice of model, quite frankly, like this crusty old guys and that don't use technology, that don't invest in their associates, that don't understand the changing legal landscape and what our clients need right now, given the nature of what's happening in the world. Like it's changed. The relationship with attorneys has changed. We don't want someone that's sitting up in their ivory tower. We want someone that's down in the dirt with us and helping us facilitate our business. And so the concept of the law spot and my my vision for it is to really be the bridge between people DIYing it and the inaccessible big law firms that are just, they're not for your everyday people. Like they're just beyond where you can access them. So that's what everything I've built has been designed to do. And that's what I'll continue to do.
Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or did you think, I'm gonna work for a firm, retire, do it that way?
I 1000% said I never want to own my own firm. And
really?
I did until
look at you.
I know I did. And 2020 changed me. And I had some personal things happen. I had, I became a partner. I had more visibility into the operations of a firm where it didn't seem so hard and it didn't seem so far-fetched. Now, don't get me wrong. It is hard. It is hard to be an entrepreneur. I have so much empathy for every single client and every single amazing, confident person that makes the leap into this world of uncertainty and self-reliance. And I mean, it is amazing. And I have immense respect for all of them. But no, I didn't think that was in my path until one day it was. And I once I made the decision, everything was much easier. The waffling between like, what do I want to do? Can I do it? Can I not? Once I decided, everything was easy because you made the decision. But it was like the lack of choice really caused so much, just inner turmoil for a while. And then you just have to do it if you want to do it. And banking on myself, investing in myself has always been okay. Like those investments, whether they reap benefits today or reap benefits later, have never gone without dividends. So I just, I wanted to try, and I wanted to have that be an example for my daughters. And it's so cool. They pull up my website and they look at my picture, like,
look
it's
at mommy.
like, oh, look at mom.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of life.
It is. So, it's a different mindset too, because the mindset, when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, the mindset you got to have to, you doubt yourself, of course, like you said, it's going back and forth saying, can I do it? Should I do it? Will it work financially? Is it going to work out? All that uncertainty, but it's that mindset that you have to have where it's like you said, banking on yourself. Investing in yourself has never led you wrong.
Nope.
And I think that's a good piece of advice for entrepreneurs, is that you can always bank on yourself because it never leads you in the wrong place.
Yeah. And even if you don't see the return today, like you're growing, every mess up you have along the way is teaching you something that's going to put you on the path, and, whether you're stretching your, like I've literally been doing things I've never done for the last 7 months in terms of operating a bit. Like I made my own CRM and, it's just like things that I didn't have to do, but it's using a different part of my brain, which I enjoy. And also doing like the legal stuff. Now I'm building out my team as well. And I think that's a big challenge for people sort of as they scale. So
Yep.
There's all the aspects and growing pains with that, but it's fun, you know. And if you don't think it's fun, then it might not be your jam.
No, it's not. You know, so I want to ask, when it comes to new entrepreneurs, what is the legal foundational work that needs to be done? You know, because if they come to you, are they brand new, meaning like, I have an idea, I haven't launched it yet, or either I have a product, I just haven't did anything yet with it because I want to get my legal house in order. What are the first steps that you would tell them, okay, here's the steps you need to take?
So, I talk about this. I do a monthly webinar, and I call this the Business Builder Blueprint. And I talk about considering what type of entity you might consider. You know that you're going to need one. I don't think it's responsible to be a sole proprietor these days, just in the environment we live in, and you know, protecting your personal assets is important for your family, for your future. So some sort of limited liability structure, whether it's a LLC or corporation, most likely is in the plan. So considering where you want to be, what that looks like, what your growth, you know, what's your end game? Consider that keep the end in mind as you pick which structure. And you don't have to know everything, but do you know immediately that you're going to take on investors, but you want to maintain control and just get money? Do you know immediately that you have, you know, multiple people in your business? Like, there are factors to consider that go into what strategic path of entity type you choose. So that's, you know, keep the end in mind. You know, with certain things, like at a sole proprietorship, your kids can't inherit that. It dies with you. So that, you know, that. Well, it's you. Yeah, your business is you. That's it. So you die and you're gone. You know, it's gone. So if you're trying to build something, a franchise, or you're trying to take over, you know, world domination, like you got to know what's your real vision. Are you using it as a tool to build wealth? Do you want your kids to be able to inherit it? All those things, just think through them and talk about them with somebody that can tell you, well, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. What's going to be appropriate. And then second, I mean, if you have a product or a service, you probably have some intellectual property. In some manner. Like what is unique about your coaching program? What is unique about the service that you provide? Is it the materials that you use? Is it the framework that you've come up with? Would you be damaged if someone else used that framework in their coaching program? Would you be mad? Like, is that something that is proprietary to you? And if nothing else, making sure that you understand what could be an asset as you grow and start developing things, because your business plan on day one might not be your business plan in 6 months, because the market might have told you, nope, we want this instead. And that's what you do. And then just making sure that those relationships, whether it's with people that invest in your company or the people that are serving you or you are serving, are defined, and that everybody knows the rules of engagement, so that nobody is surprised, and you're protecting yourself, at least at a foundational level. And then, you know, as you grow, there'll be new challenges, but those are just the 3 things I touch on, because they're so easily bypassed. You can do business without all of those things. Like, you can literally go sell lemonade on the street, and that's a business. So, and it's funny, I had a professor in law school. That was the story he told. He said, I never let my kids have a lemonade stand, because it's a sole proprietorship. And that means that if they sold lemonade and that lemonade got someone sick, that they could sue him. And that's how he explained it to my class. And I was like, okay, yeah. And to this day, I've never let my kids do lemonade stand.
I get that. I get it.
I probably would, but I just, if you think about it like that, and I think it's easy for lawyers to get like the reputation of being the Department of No, or like the dream crushers, but we've seen a lot of things, a lot of avoidable things, and everyone that comes to me is excited. They want to build something. They don't want to have to deal with these problems. And then when they do, it can just take the wind out of your sails and distract you from what you're trying to do. And that can be really disruptive. So
yeah. I like that. The foundational work is so important, and to take it as serious as a business. Like you said, some people just start, but if you really want it to be a business, then you do have to set that foundational work. Let me ask you this question: with the introduction of like AI and all these new tools and resources, how is it changing the landscape when it comes to business law, or affecting the landscape when it comes to business law?
That's a great question. And as you would expect, the government is not the fastest on the up and up and creating, legislation that's keeping up with the technology. But on the copyright side in particular, there at least has been some indication that you cannot hold a copyright if you use artificial intelligence to create your works. So the human element is what gives it the ability to be protected. So incorporating AI might have, an impact on whether something can be copyrightable material. So just it's something that there'll be more developments on. I think there's a few pending cases. I haven't checked in the last few weeks, but I think that it's clear AI is fine, right? But if you want to own it, you can't use AI to make it.
That's good. I'm glad you said that. Because I don't think any of us know that.
And I'm talking, on the content side. If you tell ChatGPT to write you a book about coaching people and write you a 9-step program or 12-step program for leadership, like you can't get a copyright on that. You didn't write it.
I'm telling you, I don't think I ever knew that. I thought you could probably.
Well, they didn't know that. That's new. I mean, they hadn't considered that before. And so the case was he had AI create a work of art, and he wanted to claim the AI as the author of the art. And they said, no, you can't have a copyright with AI as the author. It needs to be a human author in order to be eligible.
That's good. That's definitely something we all have to keep in mind, because we use it for everything. I know plenty of people that use it to write ebooks, like the simple stuff, but it's not human, so it can't be copyrighted. So, tell my audience, what type of materials do most people copyright? Because
in the creative space, I mean, think of if you break down the word, it's like anything that you wouldn't want to give someone the right to copy. So it has to be a tangible representation of like an artistic or literary work. So you're talking your photographs, you're talking your books, you're talking videos, movies. You can do code in some cases. You can do website pages. Not the domain itself, but like the look and feel of a website. You can copyright a logo. That's another way. That's kind of a cheaper way to do some intellectual property protection of a design is to copyright a logo. Now, it has to be eligible for copyright protection meaning that it's unique enough. Like it can't just be Times New Roman.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It has to have some design elements in order to be protectable as a design. But that is something that you could do, and sometimes is a strategy, because the statutory damages for copyright are significant. And they range from like $750 to $30,000 per infringement.
Mm-hmm.
So but you can only get that if you have a registration. So.
Okay. That's good to know. And you know what? So when I think about that copyright and what you just said, because a lot of us use Canva, right? So you think about Canva, and people use Canva for logos, and I'm saying now that I'm thinking about the whole AI piece of like it's not your original work, so you don't own it. Does that also equate to when it comes to like designs in Canva that you don't create the design for a logo, because a lot of people get their logos from there. I know I got my original one from there, and you don't create it. It's one that's already created, but you use it, you change the fonts, you make it your own. Is that something you can copyright, or it's not because you're not the person who actually created a design?
That's a good question. And I would need to read Canva's terms of service,
okay,
which, goes back to, no one wants to read the terms of service.
I never
they actually mean something. They actually mean something. And on your websites, they mean something, but like, what are you agreeing to?
Yeah.
So I can't say off the top of my head what you've agreed to, but if you use a program like 99 Designs or something like that, typically the term, and I have reviewed their terms of service, typically the copyright is transferred to the purchaser because you have paid for it.
Yeah.
So that's probably the case with Canva in terms of like the exchange of the, your subscription and your ability to access this and then use it. But, I can't say for sure.
I only thought of it because I know so many of us use it for like every design piece we're doing for the non-designer, Yeah. So that's why I thought about, and I wanted to ask that question because I'm like, is that my design or does it still belong to Canva? Just to be able to use it. So that's really good to know. And the whole AI piece too, because I'm like, I know AI is affecting every industry. It's reshaping it. It's changing it. It's giving people more access to certain things. And I was just wondering when it comes to the business law landscape, how is AI affecting that as well? So.
Yep. And, there'll be more development on that.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be more, like even in the digital space and like the metaverse and using trademarks when you're in the metaverse. There was this whole the Birkin bags, the Meta Birkins.
Oh yeah,
it's changing, and so we're slow. The government is slow. The courts are slow, and it takes somebody to actually push the issue in order for us to get clarity on what it is. So. There will be more to come on that for sure, but that's where it is today.
So you're very big on educating your clients on their entrepreneur journey. What, in your opinion, you think is one legal concept or strategy that you believe every entrepreneur should understand, regardless of their industry?
Oh man, I'm biased on the IP side just because I see that as an asset. So like if you're not willing to invest in that asset, then it's like, well, what do you have then? If it's not the name of your business, what do you have? But separate from that, if you need to have a partnership agreement, an operating agreement. I see so many, you get that thing formed with the Secretary of State, and then you set it to the side and you don't actually put the ground rules in for your business. And it's like a prenup, which, that's not sexy to talk about either, because you don't want to think about breaking up with your spouse, blah, blah, blah. But you need to plan your business divorce before you are pissed off at each other, because that is not the time for you guys to be uncertain of what rules apply. And if you don't tell each other the rules, Texas will decide, or whatever state you're in, will decide the rules for you, and they're not always good. And they might be nothing like what you guys had agreed to. And then you're going to court to talk about he said, she said, and then you're wasting all your business's money because you can't pick that partner out because they did something shady and you didn't have any proof. And it's like, just save yourself the trouble and just put something in place. Just sign it, sign the document. Please, you will thank me later.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to skip over that step. And there's a lot of handshake deals that go on.
A lot. And I'm pretty sure I know that's probably like one of the main things you see when it comes to partnerships. Two friends going to business. They think they're going to be agree on everything forever and no type of document in place whatsoever when things go in a different direction.
And that's what, if you're the money guy, right? And then you got someone that's supposed to be doing the sweat equity part, or you're the guy that's doing the equity and the sweat equity, and you were promised something, and then push comes to shove and they never give it to you. Like, what have you been working toward? Like, how would you feel if you didn't have the ability to enforce what your expectation of all that time and effort was?
Yeah.
I mean, that could be harmful. And I get it. I get that no one wants to talk about it because it's bringing up a negative before there has to be a negative. Yeah. But it's actually, it can inspire more trust in a relationship if you position it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Just dealing with the things ahead of time. And like I said, it's not sexy to talk about, but it's have to be talked about, and all this stuff has to be put in place in order to have real success in your business. So I agree with that. Looking ahead towards the future, what emerging trends in this arena, business law, should entrepreneurs keep an eye on, or maybe they can prepare themselves to adapt to?
Oh man. I think there'll be, so many more opportunities in the digital space. So that like emerging tech is huge. Being aware of privacy, and that's a big area of concern, especially if you're marketing towards kids in any way. You need to be, super just mindful and get some advice about how to do that and do that well. I think there's some really interesting developments on the name, image, likeness front with athletes. That's going to be really cool to watch. And I think I'm actually going to be honing in on that as part of my practice, because I just think it would be really cool to see how that develops and be on the front lines of how the colleges are handling that.
Yeah, that's going to be something interesting, definitely.
So I would say technology, celebrity, entertainment. I mean, those are all, that's where the economy is going, and it will continue to grow.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, Melissa, listen, this has been a good episode. I thank you so much for coming on.
I am honored. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, I've learned a lot, and I'm inspired to get my legal house in order.
I put out a lot of resources. So if someone's scratching the surface or starting out, they're welcome to check out my website. I do monthly webinars for free. And I'm, that's a lot of what the goal is, to just get awareness up so that people can be in a better spot to go after their dreams.
And don't be afraid to face the legal piece of it. Even so much so, I'm going to end the show because I know I'm running over time. But even so much so, even when we build our website, we even forget to put the legal piece, the privacy piece on our website. I don't even think a lot of us doesn't even take time to do that. I know. I just did it just a few days ago on my website. And I'm just like, oh my God. So the legal pieces have to be put in place in order to be successful. So Melissa, again, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Podcast. I appreciate you. We'll definitely have you back, because I think this is a conversation we need to keep going on about and giving out more tips and valuable tips for people to use to get themselves started with their own business. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, listen, this is the Girl Take No Podcast. I am Shani Sanders, and we will talk to you next time.